I've recently created a coin with my star sign. I'm sure you can guess which one it is. This design was for a sandcasting course, which I participated in. I wanted to start with an easy object, and coins are great for this manufacturing technique. This coin design uses an organic looking relief made in Fusion. I've been asked to share how I created this piece, so let's get started with the process in CAD. The first thing you want to do is find an image that you want to use for your relief design. I really wanted to use the Sagittarius sign symbol, which is the bow and arrow, and I found this image that I really liked. You can definitely find your own imagery for star signs or whatever you want to use for your coin design. I will just show you the process in general, and then you can replicate it hopefully for your own design. Let me know in the comments if you need any help, and I am happy to answer any questions. Let's get started with your blank design. So if you have something open already, you just click on this plus sign for a new design. Maybe you just open Fusion, so usually you have your own untitled file already open. So the first thing we do is save your file. And the first thing you do is insert your image. So let's click here on Insert and go to Canvas. It's the fourth one from the top. Click, left click, and then Insert from my computer. And here is my design. So there's a new window that opens up. The window will always tell you what you do need to do next, which is blue highlighted. So it tells you, okay, find the face, then select the face. So it really doesn't matter which one it is. I usually use the front view. So if you go to your cube up here and click on front, then you can select the face, left click, and you can instantly see that your image will appear here on the plane, X and Y. And it will give you a new window, which you will have to basically position your arrow and your image so it is more centered. That is very important so that you can, draw on top of your image, but also make sure that you could mirror some of the images or some of the objects on the 0, 0 point and on that axis here. So if you don't understand it right now what I actually mean by that, you will later on in the video, but just make sure that it is centered at the arrow here. And then click OK. And there you have your image already baked into the file. And the next thing we need to do, a super important step before you start designing anything that you actually want to create a physical object of, is make sure that you have the actual size that you want for this image. So I want to create a 2 centimeter coin, 2 centimeters in diameter, and I need to obviously make sure that the arrow fits into that coin. So by going to your browser here, you see that you have within that folder canvases. When you click on that arrow here, you can open it up and you see that your image is in here. Definitely has a different title than mine. So you just right click on it and then on calibrate with left click. And then first nothing happens, but if you watch the cursor, next to the cursor, Fusion always tells you what to do next. So pick the first point on the canvas plane. Okay, so we want to measure the distance from the end of the arrow where the feathers are to the point. And I'm going to click here to here. And it tells me it's 11.8 millimeters, which I've already checked, obviously, with my first coin, which is totally fine. And it fits into the 20 millimeter diameter of the coin that circles it. And then I just hit enter. If you want to change something in the value, you just type in 11.8 and then hit enter. And maybe you've seen the small difference that it makes, but if you have like a 20 millimeter width and then change it down, then you will definitely see the change. You can always recalibrate it again if you've mucked it up the first time around, so don't worry about it. You can always right click again, calibrate, And yeah, just go back to it once you're happy with it. You can move on to the next step, which is drawing on top of this image now. We are now in the solid mode, which is this blue mode where everything becomes 3D. But before we start creating something 3D, we need to have a sketch that has the silhouette of this arrow and whatever we want to extrude, basically. So we need to have a 2D image first, and we need to create a sketch for that. So here in your menu, in the solid mode, you should find Create Sketch. If it's not up here, which it usually is, but if you find it in the drop-down menu here, it's under Create Sketch. Then you click again on Select a Plane or Planar Face next to your cursor. Fusion always tells you what to do next, so if you're not sure, then just wait for this message to pop up. And the plane is meant by either XY plane, XZ, so kind of the coordinate system that you used in math before, in geometry. Then you click here with the left click and you're in a completely different mode. You can see it up here. And it also tells you highlighted that you're in sketch mode. You have all these different options now that look more like 2D drawings. The first thing we want to do is draw a line in the middle that is our mirror line. And our mirror line is not something that we want to use as a profile for making a 3D object out of it. We just want to use it as a help line. So for using a help line, you need to make sure that in your sketch palette, you've clicked on construction line, and this needs to be blue highlighted. And then you go on line, which you can also find under create, but it usually is in the options here. Then you just draw a line that is a bit longer than your arrow. Make sure that it doesn't, it's not skewed to some kind of degrees, but make sure it's at 0 degrees, so it's just horizontal. And then you just left click to fixate it, and then click on this green check mark to finalize this one line. Then hit escape, so you're not in the line mode anymore. Then you want to move this line to your 0, 0 point so that it is actually that mirror line. For it to be exactly on that 0, 0 line, you click here, left click on your line, highlight it, and then you want to add a constraint. So that constraint makes sure that it just stays on that 0, 0 point, and we will just use the constraint midpoint, so it's just in the middle. That line, the system finds basically the middle point of that line and puts it on that 0, 0 point. Okay, so then we click midpoint and then select this point as the point where it's supposed to be located. Okay, now you can see also that the dotted line here, the dashed line is on the 0, 0 point, and it's black, so it's constrained on it. And then we hit escape again because we see that the midpoint function is still active, and you can see it next to your cursor as well, that you have that little triangle next to it. And then just hit escape and you're out of that function again. So the next thing we want to do is draw everything that we need. So we start with the bow, then go on to the string and the feathers, the point, and everything we need. So for the more organic and curvy objects, we use the spline tool. And for the straight up lines, we just use the line tool. If you don't have the fit point spline up here in the functions, then go to create and spline and select fit point spline. And we will start with the bow. So make sure that the point starts right on that mirror line. So you can see that it snaps into it with a little cross. And then just start somewhere. I'm seeing that it's still a sketch line, so let's make sure that it's not. We can still go to the sketch palette and de-highlight it so it's back to normal. And then we just select any point of the curvature of the bow, or that wooden piece here. You don't have to worry that it's supposed to be super exact. You can always change after you finished the round. You can always change the points and the angles, so don't worry about it right now. At first, you're probably going to have a lot of points, a lot of unnecessary points, but it doesn't matter at the beginning. Okay, then make sure that you hit that mirror line again with your last point, and then hit the check mark. And there we go. We have reconstructed this shape. And then hit escape. So you're not in that fit point spline mode anymore. And now you can see that you have these green handles on each of these points. And these green handles kind of indicate, if you move them around with your left click, hold it down, you can see that the angle changes. And if you just want to move the black point around, which is just kind of like the point where you can move the whole spline around to, change the curve around. There are multiple options to do that. If you're not happy with it, you can move it around a little bit. Make this angle maybe a little less steep here as well. Make sure that this angle here, if you have, like an image where you have super narrow points, make sure that it's not too narrow, because once we move into the relief part of it, you want to make sure that it's not too narrow here and make it wide enough. Okay. Okay, so I'm happy with this shape for now. Then I will move on to the shape of the feathers. So I start here again on the mirror line, draw here, and here. So it's not exactly like the image, but that's something I figured out after trying out the first round of the coin. You can always go back with your own image to find something that you really like. Maybe you want to make it more square, maybe you want it more roundish. So that's up to you as the designer or the artist. And I'm just moving this up here, making this a bit more narrow. And I will move this to make it a bit more round. So for now, I'm happy with this shape. You can always, that's the beauty of Fusion, you can always go back into your timeline, change the sketch, go back to the sketch, and then adjust the spline. So there are no worries about something that you have already drawn and you need to change it. Okay, so now we move on to the bowstring and draw the line. And make sure that you start right on the spline. So you have that little snap point again with the cross. Click on the left and make sure that it also snaps in here. Into the other point, the other spline. And then you want to create another line so that it's a closed relief. The same thing goes for here. Up to this point, and here, and here, and close it off here. And then we start on this point and draw the arrow. Okay, so once you made sure that everything, is exactly hitting, like snapping on these points, and you have your point reaching exactly the mirror line, then you can mirror all these pieces onto the other side. I just want to show you what happens if this part here, if I delete this and draw another line, and it doesn't snap directly onto the mirror line. Just want to show you what happens. So you can see now that I want to mirror all these pieces. I can highlight these with a left click, hold it down, and draw a box over all these lines. And you can see here in the mirror window, you need to select your mirror line, and I'm gonna choose the dashed line here and select, and you can see that this, if I get rid of the image, you can see that everything is blue, like it has a light blue touch to it. So you can, if you hover over it, you can see that it's, you know, giving you a dark, if you click on it, it's a dark blue, or like a, it's still washed out, but a dark blue background. But if you try to click on this arrow here where we haven't snapped into the into this line, you can see that it's not a closed profile, and you cannot actually make a 2D, 3D, a 3D object out of it. So make sure that everything snaps to each point here and to the mirror line. Okay, now I can fix this by modifying it with an extension. So I'll just extend it up to the line here, do the same here. And you can see that now it's closed completely, and you can actually extrude it to a 3D object. Okay, so escape and finish your sketch now. So we've done everything we needed to do. And click OK.